Hello and welcome to Clay to Canopy, the show where I attempt to make just about everything from the ground up. If you are new to this channel, please hit that subscribe button, it really helps me out. In this video, we are going to be turning your pet into a Victorian portrait. I'm going to walk you through the steps from start to finish on how I made this Victorian cat toy that's actually stuffed with catnip. This process will still work for any pet of your choice. If you are not a cat fan, you can still go through the stages of making, I don't know why you wouldn't be a cat fan, huh? What's up with you? Anyway, you could totally do this with your dog or other pet. So here we go, let's get started. I have this stuff and I absolutely love this stuff. It is actually fabric that you run through your inkjet printer. You can print out any photograph or any design or whatever and it prints onto fabric. And then you go through the steps. There's some basic steps here on what to do to pre-treat it and make sure that the color stays in place before you use it in a project. I thought it would be fun to print out some Victorian cat portraits. Because I'll be printing these in miniature, it's not really going to matter if I don't get the color exactly perfect. So let me just show you what the fabric itself looks like. So here's the fabric. It's just a sheet of paper and then it has this coating here. You actually run it so that it prints directly on the fabric part of it and then go through these steps that it says once you've printed it. So I'm going to go ahead and get my cat pictures printed out on this. I'm going to take you through the steps really quickly on how to basically doctor a picture to overlay your pet's head over another image. So first thing you want to do is do a quick search on the internet, and I'm just going to do Victorian man and then go to images, find an image that you are happy with, right click and save picture as, and then drop it somewhere, retitle it because usually they're funky. So I'm going to just Victorian man, drop it on my desktop, then open up Photoshop, and then once in Photoshop, go ahead and open your Victorian man picture or whatever you're doing. And then after this guy's open, you're going to go ahead and find your pet image and open that one up as well. Once you're there in your pet image, you want to use the quick selection tool. Make sure you're selected with the positive. Select your head just by clicking around and getting what you need. Then click copy, and you're going to open up a new document. Doesn't matter what size, just pick a new something and paste your head in. Now from here you can pick grayscale or dual tone. I usually like using duotone because I can go ahead and pick a background like an antique off-white color for an image, and then once I've done that, let me zoom you in here, you can go ahead and mess around with the tone, and it should give you this two-tone look. I'll go ahead and copy this and then drop it onto my other image and see what happens. And you can see not quite the tone I'm looking for, but in doing this, at least, you know, I can get an idea. I need to make it a little bit more red, I think. So go back to my other image and then go back to my modes here, and I have my dual tone, and I can change this second tone color to something that's a little bit closer to maybe what my secondary tone that's happening in the other image. So this is just one way of doing this, and once you've done this and selected it, you can then go in and play with the different levels and different adjustments to, you know, mess around with, you know, these different settings and see if you can get close to what you're looking for. And as I said, this is only one way. In a moment I'm going to show you a second way, but here you're playing with your curves, your levels, and brightness and contrast. So, you know, mess around with those, see if you get something that you like. If you're not satisfied, you may want to go to the other route, go back and copy your image again. But this time when you go and you create a new file, you want to make sure that your mode is set to RGB because we're going to do this in color. So go ahead and then paste your head, and then from there, and make sure you select the layer that you're on so your head is selected. Your adjustments then will now be a color balance adjustment. So you can go in and mess around with these, and this gives you a little bit more option to change these out. I'm going to use these adjustments, these color adjustments. So once you're satisfied with all that, go ahead and close it out. You can click back and forth between your photo to make sure that you're eyeballing a decent color tone, and then select your head again, the cat head or pet head or whoever's head you're copying, and then paste it back into your image that you're going to be merging together. And then you can see this is a much better match. If I do lay this over, I'm going to have the other person's head still stuck under there. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of some of this head by using my clone stamp tool. And then if you want to, you can adjust the size of your clone, but make sure you're clicked onto the background. And as you're clicked onto the background, you then want to hold down the Alt key and then click your mouse at the same time, and that will give you a reference point. So it'll highlight that reference point. When you're holding down the Alt, you'll see that little bullseye looking thing. That's your reference point. And then after you let go of the Alt, you can go ahead and click around, and as you begin to click, it clones whatever that area is next to it. So you can go ahead and mess around with that. I'm going to just delete out the rest of this head. And then once that is done, I can drag over my cat head. And now he's going to need some adjustment. So we want to go over and reselect him, and then go up to Edit and Transform and Skew. And then from here, you have this little box pops up, and you can adjust it any way you need to and kind of resize it to get it the way. Click your check mark, and then from here I need to get rid of this terrible neckline. See, I have want to blend it a little bit better, so let's zoom you in. And then once you've done this and you have your two layers, you need to flatten your layer before you can work on them. So go ahead and flatten your layers, get rid of my selection here, and then once it's flattened, I can go back to my stamp tool. And from the stamp tool, I will again just come in and play around with blending this out and getting rid of some of this extra to basically have my cat head. Don't forget to save your work once you've done. And here, let's get zoomed out so that you can see this overall finished piece. And there he is. Once your pictures are ready to go, you can go ahead and place them into a Word document. That's the next step. I just used the photo insert tab that you can click on and inserted my image, adjusted my margins, and then went about resizing my image to make sure that I got the size that I was aiming for. And on this document, I was able to go ahead and put in all of my photos that I wanted to print. That way I could be sure that I fill up my page, get the most out of my fabric page. Once all of that was done, it was just then off to the print, and I was ready to go. Alright, so actually I spaced them out a little bit more so that I would have a little bit more room when I go to cut them out on the fabric. So bear with me in my disastrous studio right now. This is what happens when I'm in between projects. I end up with messes, and hopefully this is printing properly. Here we go. Cat faces on fabric. I'm gonna let this dry, not too shabby, and then we're gonna go through the steps of the treatment. The instructions say to wait 10 minutes for the ink to dry and then peel the backing off of the fabric. Have your iron set to the highest heat for cotton, and to basically press with the iron for 1 to 2 minutes over the image to kind of heat set them. But it also said that high pressure can smudge the thing, so also high heat, no steam. So I'm gonna just do 1 to 2 minutes on each one. Try to do 1 to 2 minutes on each one and not move the iron. Alright. And you can see it altered the color a bit, but that's okay since these are meant to be antique-y, but just keep that in mind. Alright, so after this, I'm gonna go inside and wash the thing with some cold water. It says not to rub it, just to gently rinse it in cold water. And I'm guessing that's to remove any excess dye that did not set. And then from there, you're supposed to let it fully dry and press it again. So I'm gonna go through all of those steps off camera because I'm guessing right now it's pretty boring you sitting here watching me just sit here with an iron staring at the thing. Now I'm going to begin cutting it up and measuring for my seam allowance and giving myself this 1/4 inch border because I'm going to be applying this little ribbon around it as a frame, but I need to check and make sure that this doesn't end up making them too big. Okay, so this interior bit will be the visible part, and I will need to give myself some seam allowance. Just gonna go with a 1/2 inch for now. All right, go ahead and cut some muslin the same size for the back. Before I pin these all together, I'm gonna go ahead and get my ribbon on around the border edge first, and I'm gonna stitch that on. I'm just going to use a standard straight stitch for both this ribbon and the regular stitching. This printable fabric is really thick. It's a little difficult piercing it with these pins. And I am stitching only on the inside close to where the image is, so that I don't end up getting this messed up from where I'm going to be stitching the seam line. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stitch the backing on, which is this muslin, and I'm going to do that on 3 sides. So I'm just going to pin this on the wrong side. I'm going to leave the top open because in the top is where I'm going to be stuffing, and then also putting something for me to hang it with. Since this is a cat toy, I'm going to run an extra stitch right next to my first one just to reinforce it. I'm going to trim away some of my extra seam before I flip this inside out. Really probably should not be using the tip of my scissors for this. I have a tool somewhere, and by tool I mean it's some plastic thing that I was convinced to buy. I'm risking poking through my seam here with scissors, so do what I say, not what I do. Okay, I'm gonna stuff this little guy. And if you ever need cheap filling, wait till Christmas and buy the stuff that they sell for snow decorations, because it's much cheaper than stuffing that they sell. It's actually half the price. Wonder if I should fill this with some catnip. Pile of it on the ground over here that we save clippings of for the babies, so it's organic. Tuck this little seam in here, and I'm most likely going to have to hand stitch this, I think. I found some cream colored yarn that'll work just fine for the little hingy tag. I usually like to tie a knot and then stick it into the center of where I'm stitching. And then I threaded a needle with the same off-white I've been using for stitching. I'm going to just go ahead and stitch up my seam here. That catnip is potent. Hopefully it'll last a little bit. I finished top stitching this little guy, and honestly after doing so I'm not really happy with this string that's sticking out, so I decided that instead of dealing with this and putting hooks inside of the house, which I think is probably going to be unsafe, I'm going to just Velcro these. So I'm going to stick a bit of Velcro, and this is just sticky Velcro that I will stick on the back of this and put a corresponding Velcro on the wall of where these are going to get installed inside the house. And then I went ahead and finished out these others. And this Velcro is just your basic Velcro. They do make some that is sew on at the fabric store, but since this is an afterthought, I'm going to go ahead and stick this on. The house you guys are looking at is part of a video series where I created the entire thing from start to finish. So check out the links in the description box for those videos, and that's all I have for you today. So please like, share, and subscribe if you have not done so already, and hope to see you soon. You having fun in there? Y'all are too noisy everywhere else, huh? Mommy's making you some toys. You looking through the window? Hi!